Well, to the story, the ANC NEC met today to receive a report on coalition talks, including an update on potential coalition agreements. The party has expressed its openness to work with anyone in a coalition government and is set to announce its partners very soon. So to discuss the party's potential coalitions in Johannesburg and Tshwane is political analyst Jan-Jan Joubert, who joins us now. Jan, always a pleasure speaking to you. Let's talk a little bit about coalition talks. I mean, right now the ANC is having their NEC meeting. However, at the back of that we saw was that yesterday the Democratic Alliance leader, John Steenhuisen, announcing, maybe to the shock and horror of some of the smaller political parties, about their way forward in terms of coalition talks. I want us to talk a little bit about the Democratic Alliance first. Do we find that, given the statement that was ushered by John Steenhuisen, that the DA seems a little bit intimidated by Action SA, or have got their own way around the political maneuver of coalitions?
Good evening, Faith, and good evening to all our viewers. Yes, very interesting situation. Now, on Friday, there was a meeting between the DA and its potential coalition partners, which would include Action SA, the Freedom Front Plus, the ACDP, the UDM, and COPE. And that meeting decided that the DA Federal Executive should take a decision on the matter, but it should be communicated back to the political parties to be discussed, and then a joint position would be taken by Saturday afternoon. However, to the surprise and perhaps the frustration of many of the other potential coalition partners, the DA saw fit on Saturday morning to have its leader issue a statement all by itself, surprising its potential coalition partners. This now has led to another meeting which started at 10 a.m. today and has continued periodically, where, as I understand, very little progress has been made. It brings into some difficulty any possible majority coalitions for the DA and its partners in Johannesburg and Tshwane. In Tshwane, there's a clear road for a majority for the DA and its coalition partners, but the DA failing to support Action SA's candidate, Herman Mashaba, in Johannesburg will put this in jeopardy. Talks, I understand, are continuing in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, when we're looking at also where the ANC sits, I mean, we heard now from Lebohang Maile, Kokta in Gauteng, saying that it cannot be about political patronage, it cannot be about wanting to secure political power, it also cannot be about who wants to be the kingmaker in that regard. But is this avoidable when it comes to the coalition talks, especially from the African National Congress?
It's utterly unavoidable, Faith, and Mr. Maile knows that better than most, seeing that he himself has had a few court cases that he's lost up to the Constitutional Court, where his intervention in Tshwane has been deemed illegal. So if we look at the ANC's position, and my understanding is that the NEC is meeting in Irene, in the south of Tshwane, as we speak, and is hammering out who they want to work with. The question for them and for many other parties is, what will the EFF do in Johannesburg tomorrow? Should the EFF back the Action SA candidate, who will also be backed by the Freedom Front, ACDP, UDM, COPE, and a host of other small parties, then we're going to have an interesting situation unless the DA changes its position. Here's the situation. According to the Municipal Structures Act, the mayor must be elected by at least 50% of those voting. If that is so, then, and the DA puts up its own candidate, Action SA puts up a candidate, and the ANC puts up a candidate, no one has 50% of the vote. Should the EFF side with Action SA, the DA candidate will fall out. If the EFF does not side with Action SA, then it will be a fight between the DA and the ANC. So if the EFF, as expected, backs Action SA, it's going to leave the DA in a terrible position, all of its own making. It will have to decide on whether to back the ANC or whether to back Action SA or whether to abstain. If it abstains, the ANC gets in. This is a real mess for the DA if the EFF goes with Action SA.
Yeah, certainly it's a very interesting time in South African politics in that regard. But if I had to ask you around who could potentially be those kingmakers, as you said, it's unavoidable, who are we looking at right now to set the political course of this country, especially in light of the fact that we've got about 66 hung municipalities already?
Yes, and Faith, we've been speaking about this for a while, for the last 2 weeks or so. And what we have taken care to try and say is that actually we were looking at a number of elections all in one. And in this case, it's 66 stories. Now, here's an interesting point to ponder. The DA is making a point that they cannot work with the EFF, yet in Maluti Apofung municipality in Kwakwa, they are supporting the candidates against the ANC and then directly going into coalition. I would have thought that's the smart way for them to go in Joburg. In Matsikama municipality here in the Western Cape, which is Vredendal and that area, it's the furthest north in the Western Cape. The situation is that the council has 15 members, the DA has 6, the Freedom Front has 1, and the ANC and its partners also come to 7. And the casting vote was with the EFF. It went with the DA, and the DA has accepted that position. So I don't understand how it is possible that within the realms of at least logic, they can agree to Matsikama, not agree to Joburg. As for the ANC, it has much more to gain, because there's a host of small parties it can work with in those 66 hung councils. I don't think we have time to look at each of them. There are a great many of them, especially here in our province, Western Cape, which actually are sorted out. Many of them have also met. Instance, Drakensberg Council here in Paarl has met, so has Cape Town, as you know. So many of these councils are constituted. As for the hung councils, the Freedom Front and the DA being in an agreement in the Western Cape means that councils like George, Saldanha Bay, Breda Valley and Worcester, these are large councils, Western Cape, are sorted. But in many other parts of the country's local parties hold the balance of power. I want to look at one council in the Northern Cape, that's the Karreeburg Council in Carnarvon. That is a very small council, but in the position is as follows. It has 11 members. The ANC has taken 5, the DA 2, the EFF 2, and the local party, the Karreeburg party, has taken 2. So it's, if the opposition works together, they're 6 and the ANC are 5. The opposition wants to work together, but that would need the buy-in of the EFF and the DA nationally. I think yet again the EFF has said that it will oppose the ANC in most councils. So it's up to the DA leadership to tell the people of Carnarvon whether they can work with the local party and the EFF. As for the ANC, it has turned into an agreement with the Patriotic Alliance, which is a party which has taken some pretty strange decisions, including today putting out a social media message saying that all Patriotic Alliance members must immediately apply for tenders and the like where the Patriotic Alliance is in power. Its leaders saying, we will show you why you voted for us. So make of that what you want. This is one of the parties which the ANC is in coalition with. I also believe that the ANC will be able to put together a coalition government in the eThekwini municipality in Durban, and we will know who the ANC mayoral candidates are by the end of the evening. We were told by the ANC, and actually there is some time pressure because that Joburg Council meeting is at 10 tomorrow morning. The Tshwane Council meeting in Pretoria is at 7 a.m. on Tuesday. I think both
I have to
the
interject
ANC
there. Unfortunately, you and I can speak the entire evening about this matter. And of course, it is a time that is interesting when it comes to the state of politics in South Africa, and would have to leave it there, unfortunately, for this evening. But never a dull moment when it comes to your insights. Political analyst Jan-Jan Joubert giving us the latest in terms of how coalition talks actually faring in this time.